Right, guys, welcome again to another session at Bridging the Realm at our Life After Death Summit. I hope you guys managed to tune in to yesterday's interviews, which were incredible. I had a number of amazing guests with me where we spoke from anything to the need for discussing death and anxiety and preparation for death, to psychic mediumship, communication with our loved ones after their death. So we've covered quite a range of topics, and I hope that you guys managed to get something informative and helpful out of all the topics. It's definitely something that it's been discussed throughout this whole year 2020, and it's just really important that we share this information with anyone that we know might contribute from it. So please do share it, like it, subscribe, and tune in and make sure you have your questions ready for the next session. But today we're going to be speaking about a little bit of a different topic, which is also one of my favorite ones. And it's also because there's so much research behind it. And that's to do with the near-death experiences. And a lot of science now has actually been improving that near-death experiences are a really good gateway of opening us up to the idea that there is life after death and that our loved ones do continue to live on the other side. So I'm really excited to welcome my guest today, who will be speaking about not just one of her death experiences, but quite a few. So I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions, so do make sure you put them in the comment section in the chat of the video, and stick with us until the very end, which is when we're going to be doing the Q&A session. So my guest with me is today is Anne Bayford, who is a holistic, intuitive trained therapist, a psychic medium, and a past life practitioner, where she runs her own successful private practice worldwide, and is also a consultant at the world-renowned College of Psychic Studies based in London. Anne sees many of her clients through one-to-one consultations who may be facing life challenges and are seeking more clarification from loved ones who have passed over. Her work really aims to bridge the gap between the spiritual and physical dimensions. And what she also does is to invite loved ones, animals from the other side, and also people who may be relatives or friends, to really step closer to us and to offer their support to the people who are still here living. And also teaches a group of spiritual empowerment workshops and organizes spiritual wellbeing retreats, and teaches psychic abilities to her private group students every week. She also has trained as a qualified cognitive hypnotherapist, a Neuro linguistic practitioner, a Reiki Master. Sorry?
Well done.
Yeah, it's quite a...
Yeah.
And she's also an animal communicator and a medical intuitive. So quite some experience behind your belt there. So welcome, Anne. Thank you so much for being here with me today and for joining me in this event.
It's lovely.
How are you?
I'm okay, apart from being woken up at 3 o'clock this morning by Spirit giving me some information. I need to talk to them about my working hours, because 3 o'clock this morning was just not on really. I have a big white notice board in my bedroom where I can wake up, literally have a marker pen, and I can just write over the board, and that's literally what I did at 3 o'clock this morning. And when I woke up, I was like, oh my gosh, you can't really decipher the handwriting. I'll spend the rest of the day doing that. So yeah, apart from that, I'm good. You good?
You had some sleep at least, so I think, yeah, hopefully. Oh wow. Is it anything important that maybe you'll be able to share with us today, or is it something more for later on?
Yeah, I mean, I just heard, literally, they don't switch off. I just heard, one of my guides in my ear. It's always important, of course it is. Yeah, but it's just literally the connection I have with my guides, my team, just telling me some information, because obviously I run groups during the week and they give me a bit of a download. And also when I see clients during the week, I'm often left thinking, crikey, there's something going on more than this. So it's a lot about November month, how it's been quite sticky, but you know, the energy wise and how people are going through so much at the moment. That was really what came through last night, about their journey and what's happening to them, those life challenges that we have, especially over this whole COVID period in the last couple of months. So it was really a download to sort of, I suppose, offer some support and some guidance really for people that it's going to be okay. But yeah, it has stirred up a lot, especially the energy in November. It's been very sticky. But moving forward, there's going to be more changes coming ahead. But yeah, it was mainly about that really, and just telling people to hold on in there. That's what they're saying. Hold on in there.
Oh wow, thank you for sharing that with us. I think yeah, a lot of people find that very encouraging, especially now towards the end of the year. I think people are just tired and just want this year to be over and done with, and like, come on, just get on to the next one.
It's so true. Yeah, do you know what, it's so true. And where people have had you know, a lot of things that's been going on over the years where they thought they have resolved, you know, relationships has been a big one that's come up recently with a lot of my clients, how they're trying to come out of relationships and then they kept being pulled back into the relationship or trying to move forward, and lots of things, you know, obviously with the COVID, people made redundant and other stuff that's going on for them, and also their loved ones as well passing over. People find it very difficult to cope with all the emotions that are coming up for them. So yeah, it's a tricky month, especially in the period of time that we've had. But I love it with Spirit when they come forward and they offer guidance and they're like, we're here, we're supporting you, and it's all you have to do is just allow them to step forward to offer that support to you. That's it really. So yeah.
Oh wow, thank you for sharing that. I think that's so important to remember, yeah, that we do always have that spiritual support on the other side, even though we can't necessarily see it and perceive it with our physical senses. It's still there, so it's nice to have that and to know that. So yeah, really good. Well, I think it's quite good that they woke you up at 3 to remember that.
That's what you think, not for me, but yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And you said about the physical, we can't physically see them, which is true to some degree, but it's those signs they leave for us. And that's really important. They, you know, if you have obviously people that don't believe, and that's absolutely fine. But when you have those awakening moments, things happen for you and then your life changes. You know, it can recalibrate you. Like, okay, thank you. They just said, like the sat nav, where you type in your journey or where you want to go to. And lots of people have a life plan and they think, you know, 5 years time or 2 years time, they're going to do something. And then a bit like with my accident, how something happens and it sort of reroutes you. So it's like, turn around when possible. And that was my sat nav.
Yeah, like a broken yeah.
Rerouted me.
Oh yeah, it's amazing how we do always get those signs. It's just, are we open to them and are we looking out for those? Yeah,
that's it. And that's what, you know, teaching people or reading, anyone can do it by reading and finding the right avenue of them seeking out information to help guide them, to make them aware. Because otherwise, you things like, you know, the feather in front of you on the pathway, people just say, oh, that's a bird that's flown over, but that feather could have landed anywhere, you know. So it's just those signs that's just saying, hey, we're here. So yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
Oh yes, totally. And I think once you do start to follow the signs and kind of just look out for them, they give you even more, because it's like, okay, now we see you actually, you know.
It's that momentum, isn't it? It's like that snowball effect. It's like, okay, you're starting to look at double digits on, you know, either whether it's an alarm clock or on your phone. You know, you start noticing, you know, finding pennies or whatever it is, or the robin that comes into the garden when you're walking past or something.
Yeah, I love robins. Yeah, I always see them when I need them. Yeah,
exactly. And then, you know, nature's always trying to show us things, and so that's important. I mean, I wasn't listening, of course, so you know, let's knock her down with a car or evangelist say. I mean, that's a bit over the extreme, but I did listen that day, I tell you, and it rerouted me totally. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the case with most people, isn't it? We wait until we just have no other option but to change our tactics and our way of life. Otherwise, we just try to push ourselves to the limit, and then that's it.
Yeah, and it's those life-changing circumstances that happen, you know, either a family member passing over or us going through illnesses, those life-changing situations that happen, that they are, I totally believe this, and the information I hear from my guides is that that's a way of them sort of saying, hey, look, let's look at this, let's offer you the support, let's help you to start looking at life a little bit differently, and helps you to reach out, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yes, totally. Well, thank you for sharing that. Well, speaking of death experiences and vans, let's go back to the beginning. Well, talk me through the very beginning, because you had, even before your near-death experience, your first near-death experience in 2000, you were already very sensitive as a child, right? You were feeling things, picking up things. What was that like? Growing up with these
very confusing. It wasn't nothing like you see in the movies, like exciting. It was very confusing, literally. And my mum told me this story not so long ago. She said, and I didn't really believe her when I was younger, she said that when I was born and I was a baby, that she had this cradle and it would rock, obviously, when you pushed it, this wooden cradle. You know, she said, and you know, at the time when she told me, because remember, I've trained also in psychology and as a counsellor, so my brain was very science-based in a sense. And so, you know, I was like, when she was telling me growing up, I was like, yeah, I'm not too sure. And as I became an adult, I wasn't too sure what she said, but she said, well, you know what you do. I mean, human
your logical brain comes in like,
yeah, of course it does. You know, less now, obviously, because the work that I do, but it does. And I don't think there's anything wrong in it. I think you have to question certain things, you know. Don't be in it. It's healthy, you know. And I remember she said when I was a child that the cradle would rock backwards and forwards, and there was this glow of light around me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, mum. I wondered if that was, you know, postnatal depression, because I'd had postnatal depression later on. I was like, maybe there's just something that had happened. And she said she saw her grandmother that she was very close to, and she would see her rocking the cradle when I was a baby in it. So I was like, yeah, okay. So that happened from when I was a baby. I don't remember any of that at all. But as I was growing up, I was very close to animals. There was a lot of stuff going on at home. And so what I used to do is I would talk to the pets. I mean, I remember that, and it always stays with me. When we was younger, I mean, a lot younger, my mum had bought a Hoover, and we had all pipes and tubes and stuff. And there was this cardboard box. I mean, and it had lots of holes in it. So, of course, I saw this box as a hotel, of course. It could be used as a snail hotel. So I went around the garden collecting snails, and I placed the snails in this, like, pretend hotel. And I was, like, almost imagining that I could hear them communicate with each other. I know that sounds very bizarre. Now, that could just be, as a child, I had a very good imagination, who knows. But as I grew up, there was more and more things that happened around animals. I started to hear them, and then I thought, actually, maybe they were talking and communicating with me, and maybe I wasn't the only one they were communicating with. And of course, when I was younger, I mean, I'm 52 now, but going all the way back, you're far too young to know about this, but there was a program with Johnny Morris as a presenter. I think it's called Animal Magic. And on the TV program, they used to have animals, and he would, like, do the voices to them. So he would talk to them, and they almost like spoke back. So as a child, I watched this. And one, it led me down the pathway thinking, wow, how cool this would be to work with big animals, lions, tigers, and elephants. And that's why I ended up being a zookeeper later on. So be careful what you show your children on TV, folks. And then, you know, I thought, okay, somebody else can hear animals speaking. And so I just kept on, like, hearing animals, and it sort of naturally developed. It was only later on, when I was about 19, I met Johnny Morris as a zookeeper. It was the weirdest thing ever. Some people, you know, I thought it was coincidence, but who knows? And I started having this conversation with him, and I told him I watched him when I was younger. And I said, I hear animals like you do. And he said, no, dear, I don't really hear animals. I just pretend. And it really upset me. I was 19 years old. But I was like, well, you know, I think I hear animals, and that's when I started thinking, am I going crazy? But yeah, as growing up, there was loads of situations I actually saw images and saw people who, you know, I was pointed out by my mum that there's no one there, and I could actually see, you know, people who'd passed over. So yeah, it was a bit of you know, there is that thing like you with children who have their best friend, an invisible pretend best friend, but for me it wasn't pretend, they were there. And so it was a bit of, there was some conflict within me. It left me, my confidence very low, thinking, oh, you know, what's going on? I'm saying I can see these things, I can hear these things, and others around me saying they couldn't. So it was a very difficult time growing up. I would like to say it was all rosy, but no, we're not with spirit, it was difficult.
Oh yeah, I can totally relate to that. And I think it really makes you lose the trust in yourself, isn't it? Because then you don't believe in what you're getting. So it's like, well, okay, that means I have to believe everyone else around me instead of myself.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of remember when I was young, I used to really feel into atmosphere. So when I would walk into a room, I would be able to tell if, say, my mom and dad had a fight, and I would know something happened, and then I'll ask my dad, and he'd be like, "No, nothing happened," you know. But then I would know something happened. It's like,
And yeah, children don't know. I mean, children haven't been told, oh no, you can't hear this, until they are told they can't hear it. And it's very much like, you know, like with animals, they're not told, they wouldn't understand, in the sense that, no, you are unaware that there's a person here. You know, when I communicate with animals, the work that I do now, you know, telepathically I communicate with a living animal. And the weirdest thing is having a living animal that's talking about the past animal that's died, and then you've got the client in the middle, and you're like, whoa. So, you know, animals haven't been told they can't communicate with the dead, or they can't see the, you know, a fellow pet that had passed over. And just like children, it's like when we're brought up, we're conditioned to imagine that we, you know, this world doesn't exist. And, you know, luckily for us, there's Harry Potter, the films, and all the rest of it. But, you know, you know, seeing is believing, there was that statement. But if anything, I really believe it's the other way around. You start to believe and you start seeing.
Oh yeah, yes, for sure. That's how, I guess, just going with that flow, and it kind of works out in the end.
Have that faith, just trust that, you know, there is something else out there, and you start seeing things in a different ways, you know.
Yeah, completely. And then there's more verifications that come through, and you're like, oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and as we said before, it's like that snowball effect, that momentum gets rolling, and yeah, they then become aware that you want to know more information. And so, you know, as a psychic medium, it's, you know, and as I sit here as a medium, and you bring through loved ones that want to come through to pass messages on. If you have someone sitting in front of you who, you know, wants to hear that information, I always say to them, you know, don't say anything, please let me come through with the information first, and, you know, if you're not happy, let me know. And so they sit there, a lot of them are gobsmacked by saying, how did you know that? And you're like, well, they just told me. And that's how it should be. So it's open for everyone, you know, working with your intuition, the psychic side is, you know. And I think for me, as I said, building up to the accident and things happening for me, it really woken me when I had that accident. It was like, and stop, this is the work that you're meant to do. And I didn't plan to be doing this professionally, definitely not.
So it really just came over you out of nowhere. So, well, okay, so tell me a bit I'm guessing after kind of having this sort of childhood where you weren't quite sure, you know, what you were experiencing, I'm guessing a part of you kind of just blocked these abilities to some extent, because that's what, I guess, that's what normally happens from a lot.
Well, to be honest, and I will share this, and yeah, I'm quite happy to share this. Yeah, I mean, literally, you know, during childhood, things were happening, and I was being told, no, you can't, this is not real, it's not really happening. And then during my teens, it was quite a difficult time. I went for a bit of a difficult patch, and I did suffer with depression during my teens, because I was in a world of like I'm not sure what was true or not true, and you think you're going mad. And then, you know, I started reading about books about the subconscious mind, and, you know, that little voice could be my subconscious mind telling me things. Okay. And literally, and I'm happy to put this out there, literally, I was really down and really depressed, and I was actually sectioned in a psychiatric hospital because I heard voices. How ironic. I laugh about it now, but I was saying that I could hear voices, and I was so depressed, no one was listening to me, and the medical teams were really worried that, you know, that I was having an episode. So literally I was placed in psychiatric hospital for a certain time. I was sectioned. They were worried for my health. And that was my teens. That was 18, 19. And it was literally because I couldn't tell the difference between if it really was spirit or was I really going mad. Now, I remember the incident. I was sitting in the chair within this hospital, and I remember this woman actually putting her arm through the pane of glass in this area that I was sitting. And I looked at her and I thought, she looks familiar. She was actually my careers advisor that I'd had at school. And what was funny, as a kid at school, I would say, you'd have a careers advisor that would sort of say, what do you want to do when you leave school? And I said to her, I want to become a zookeeper. And during that time, it was that you became a female, you would become a hairdresser or a secretary. It was very different back then. I wasn't allowed to do woodwork that I wanted to do at school because that was for boys. And it was funny. She'd always said to me, don't become a zookeeper. That's what men do. And there was this woman in front of me years later on who was standing in front of me who, was cut her wrist and everything. And in front of me, I was like, whoa, this is a real wake up call for me. And then I sat there and I wouldn't take the medication that they was giving me. It was like a movie, I look at movies today where I see that happening. And I sat there and I said, how the hell am I going to get out of it? And then I heard this voice. Well, if you start saying you don't hear voices, if you start pretending you don't hear voices, they'll let you out of there. So I was like, I don't care where that voice came from. I'm going with it. I couldn't make it up. So I was like, okay, from now on, I'm going to say I don't hear voices. Because I didn't know where those voices were coming from anyway. So I was in there for a short time, and then when I started saying I don't hear the voices anymore, I'm cured. I'm fine. And then from that on, I didn't tell anyone about the voices for many, many years. And it was literally, I kept on having gut feelings about doing things, following my gut feeling, but I really didn't know anything about it. And it was a very lonely place to be within yourself. If you don't have that guidance or, you can't reach out, it can be quite lonely. But yeah, there's been lots of other stuff happening in my life and things I've enjoyed doing as well. It's not been all doom and gloom, but there's been those moments and I just laugh. I look back and I just think, oh my God, if they hadn't said that, God knows where it would have been. Crazy.
Wow, so the voices saved you in a way. Also got you in there, but saved you also.
They just got me to work for them, basically, like waking me up in the morning at 3:00 this morning. So they know what they were doing. They have a bigger plan.
Well, do you know what? I'm so glad that you shared this because personally, I've also had this experience and it was really, really scary for me because I had no clue where the hell these voices were coming from. And mine was a little bit, I think whatever I was hearing, they were quite negative things. So I was shit scared at the time because I literally felt like I was going mad.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell anyone because at the time my mom was going for cancer treatment. So it was like, I'm like, oh, the last thing everyone needs right now is for me to tell them that I'm hearing voices. So it's like, okay, just shut up, get on with it. But it's like, it doesn't go away. And it's like, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I know so many people have experienced that and they don't talk about it. They just think I'm imagining it or I'm going mad or So thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important to have.
Thank you. I think also I do agree. I think it's important to share it with people because there is, as I'm also a trained counsellor and I'm aware of that, the work that I do with people. And people do sometimes think they're going crazy when they start coming across this sort of field and the intuition work and whether is it real, is it not real? But it's normally the very negative mindset is more the subconscious mind because spirit doesn't want to hurt you. Your loved ones who've passed over still want to step forward and they're just trying to reach out to you. I mean, this morning all I heard was in my ear, Anne, and I was like, what? And I woke up and I was like, oh, okay, I'm awake. And it was like I had to write some stuff on the whiteboard, but they are there. But the more that you open to it, the more that you're like, okay, come on guys, show me. They'll step forward and show you in whatever way they can. You just need to be listening, that's all.
Yes, totally. And just out of curiosity, how long did it take you roughly to realize that these were spirit voice, real voices coming from spirit that was trying to communicate with you? Because I'm guessing you were still kind of like, oh, I'm a little bit mad or something.
Yeah, it was like, okay, I'm not too sure, I'm still like, okay, I accepted the fact that maybe it was my nan. My nan had looked after me quite a lot when I was a young child. And I was very close to her. When she passed away, I was 15. So it was like losing my mother, even though my mother's still here. But she played a big part. I was quite happy to think that voice could be my nan stepping forward to keep assisting me. But it was a hell of a long time. I had children in between, I'd had postnatal depression, I'd had all these other things that happened. And that's why I ended up going off to train as a counsellor to help other people, because I'd been in that situation. I knew what it was like to have my own miscarriages, and that was a big thing, because it was like having my miscarriages, it was like, well, where do they go? They must have a soul. Then it's just not flesh and blood. There must be something else attached to this, you know. And also having animals, and you know, when your animal passes over, it's like there is this essence, you know, where does that essence go? So yeah, I was very inquisitive and started reading up, but it was many years. I mean, literally when I had my accident, I must have been about 37, something in my 30s, which actually said, look, stop, you need to pay attention now. So it was a very, very long time, a really long period of time. But I think what got me through was thinking, I think it must be my nan on the other side stepping forward. I was quite happy to feel comfortable with that sort of thought and feeling. Yeah. But a long time otherwise. I'm
Yeah.
a slow learner. What can I say to you?
But it's good because it's you know, you've gone through all these experiences, but then at least you know, like they were leading you to this path, right? That's the way I see it. So.
Yeah, and do you know what? I totally agree with you, and that's what I teach. I really feel that it's like breadcrumbs. When we have things that happen to us in our life, our experiences and trauma, that they are sort of almost like redirecting you, putting you back on your pathway, helping you. And they do try to lead you by placing those breadcrumbs there for you, guiding you. And when I mean by breadcrumbs, I literally mean like hearing what you need to hear at the right time, bumping into the certain people in your life, you know, having that teacher that as a child growing up, there was one teacher in particular, I even remember her name, Mrs. Luck. And if it wasn't for her, honestly, I was bullied and there was so much going on at school for being the weird kid. And, you know, she was one of those breadcrumbs. She was there that helped me to move me forward. And so it's really about us keeping our eyes open and being open to what happens. So, you know, having that accidental email that pops into your box, or, you know, accidentally bumping into somebody as we're walking down the road. And I think like now with the COVID and the lockdown, it's been difficult to, you know, have those accidental bumping into people. I think it's important still to be able to go out for your walks, and because there's signs around you all the time, you know. And how do you, and why do you not think that you walking down the road, I mean, especially like if I look back, you know, waiting for buses at the bus stop, if you're standing there and you start talking to somebody, maybe you were meant to say what you meant to say at that particular day, or they were meant to say a particular word, or, you know, they remind you of your grandmother and it makes you think, oh, I must phone my grandmother today. Those are all those signs. So yeah, very important.
Yes, yes, totally. And I think, yeah, you're so right. Sometimes when we look back at our lives and you can see those bits of things that were just kind of
Yeah.
like the connecting thread, right? But then obviously at
Yeah.
the time when you're experiencing it, it doesn't make any sense because you're in the moment and you're in the experience. So
Yeah, and you've got all those emotions. You're so right. You've got all those emotions, and it's so difficult to see a way out. And it actually feels quite heavy in a sense of what do I do next? And we know, like the subconscious mind, the science part of me, and everything else, the way we think, it's hard to think because the blood is sent to another part of your brain. You know, we go back to the old caveman brain style. You know, you've got 3 types, different stages of the brain. I won't go into that, but hey, and you know, you go back into that human mode, and you can't think straight. So you literally, I mean, I was going to say this, but yeah, I shall say this. It's like, that's why meditation was invented, right? It's sort of like to recorrect you, to take, you know, a moment out in time to sort of say, hey, let's reposition myself. Let's see where we are. And, you know, to stop going off in your mind and getting lost with the trauma. And I know I understand. I know it's hard, and especially how we've had all this period of time, but it's just remembering just to give yourself some space. Yeah, definitely.
oh yes, totally. And right, leading on from that, I know a lot of people want to hear about the near-death experience. So yes.
You think, or should we make them wait a little bit longer?
Well, speaking of which, I actually just want to mention something quickly. I just yet last night I had this kind of thing came to me where, you know, we kind of go through our lives just like you said, you know, we don't really stop to meditate or to think about what we've just experienced. We're like, okay, get on with the rest of it, kind of thing. And I'm like, we're missing out so much like lessons and reflectivity on what's just happened, you know. And I really said to myself, okay, my New Year's resolution, one of my New Year's resolutions, I want to be to every day, or at least every other day, to just sit down at the end of the day and just to reflect on the day and what I feel I did good, what I feel I could have improved on, you know. I'm sure a lot of people do that anyway, but I don't. So it's like a nice thing to just reflect on and just be like, okay, yes, next time I can try that better or something.
Right. And now I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to say to you, why wait to New Year's resolution? It's always now. Every time you have that thought, bring it to now. And that's what I do with my clients. It's like, you know, why put it off? Why not bring it forward? Why not do it now? I mean, it's so important in a sense. And I totally get, this is one of the messages that I heard from my guides that last night and also over the last couple of weeks, that, you know, this particular time, you know, our souls, we forget, but our souls actually signed up to be here right now and experiencing what we're doing right now. Okay. And, you know, if you'd said that to me before, like, oh, come on, really? Seriously? But our souls have signed up to be here at this particular time, for our souls to be learning and for our souls to have that growth period and to move forward. That's really hard if you've gone through a death or an illness. And I totally understand that. But the thing is, like, especially like this period of time with November as well, it's like a lot of my clients have been saying they're so tired and, you know, they're finding it hard to get motivated and everything. I mean, thank God for lockdown in a sense, to some degree. And I'm like wincing when I say that. But for those who have been able to be at home and be peaceful, that time to sort of have that time to reflect on what's going on for them, it's like almost like a full stop, to put you on pause for a short time. Okay. And I understand also about, you know, my mum in particular, in the sense that she has those lonely moments. She's missing that I can't go down to see her and stuff. So I'm aware of that as well. I am mindful of there's many different situations, but yeah, with yourself, don't wait till New Year. Let's start now. 5 things before you go to bed every night. 5 things. Write down a little journal, what you've had during the day. Don't beat yourself and say what you could do better. There's no need for that. Leave that to your subconscious mind. I would say always write your 5 things, what you've had enjoyed during your day, whether it is seeing that robin that's popped by in the garden, or having a conversation with a complete stranger, or I don't know, having your favorite bar of chocolate, as I like chocolates, or watching a great movie on the sofa with your daughter or your son or whoever, your loved ones in particular. So everyone can do that.
Focus on the positive. Yeah, it's true, because our critical mind always wins, doesn't it? It's like, you could have done this better, you could have done that better, and then it's like, but wait a minute, I did this really well and I did that really well. So you know,
don't beat yourself up. There's loads of people out there who'll do that for you, and they do a good job. Okay, we haven't got time for that. While we're here, it's a short time we're on planet Earth. We need to make the most of it, and there is scientific evidence behind that, as I know as the work that I do with the brain, that if you concentrate on the 5 things before you go to bed of all the good things that have happened in your day that's really lifted you up, it really starts helping to rewire your brain before you go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love any scientific based evidence like that. It's like when you blend it with it. Yeah, but it's true, it really is. And I think this Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about that, kind of the whole rewiring of your brain.
Well, I trained with him.
Yeah. So you tell us more about that. Yeah, before we get to that, let's go to the moment that was pretty much a big turning point in your life, which was in 2000. So walk me through what happened. Tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I never can, I'm going to say never can escape it, not that I want to escape it, but what happened was that I remember the day in particular, I literally said goodbye to my children and at school, dropped them off at school, and they were about 5 and 7 years old. And I remember, you know, like everyone, 9-to-5 job, had to get on the train quickly, rushing away quickly, give them a kiss on the forehead, see you guys later, and really thinking I was going to see them later as myself, and you know, whatever, I didn't give it any thought, rushed, got on the train and you know, started my work, my job. And literally then I was a volunteer coordinator for a charity for the elderly, about a befriending scheme and reaching out and going into the elderly's home and helping support them in some shape or form. So I worked on that project there, and I did enjoy what I was doing. I loved the contact and help and working alongside social services and counsellors then as well. And I remember the day, what it was is that I was thinking, I have to rush, I have to go pick up the kids from school, everything. You know what it's like, we're in that autopilot, we're always rushing to be somewhere, you know, never really digesting the moment, never being mindful. So I was like rushing around thinking in my head, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to pick this up, what am I going to do for dinner tonight, I need to do shopping lists, everything you can imagine. So my head was really cluttered. And I was in the office and I was thinking, I've got a letter I need to post for this client. Okay, what I do is if I leave 10 minutes early, which I used to leave the office at 2:30, I remember I left it at 2:20. I left the office and I thought, I've got this letter, I'm going to go to the post office and post it, which meant crossing over the road, then go back and go get the tube and go pick the kids up from school. And I remember leaving the office, saying goodbye to everyone and everyone that was there in this community centre. I said, yeah, see you tomorrow, not giving any thought about anything else, because you don't, because you just take in the moment, I came out of the office, came out of the centre, I walked down to the end of the road. God, I feel tearful, I don't know why. I walked to the end of the road and there was a pedestrian crossing. This is Essex Road in London, in Islington. And there was a pedestrian crossing, you had to press the button. Now, somebody else pressed that button, because I remember physically seeing them press that button. I was like, okay, I don't need to do it. Had the letter in my left hand, I remember it really well. And there must have been 4 or 5 of us crossing the road, and there's an island in the middle, and it was the traffic lights. Now, out of habit of working in London, I always look both ways, whatever part of the road I'm on. And I got to the central crossing, the middle bit, the island, and didn't give much thought about where everybody else was, because there was no need to. And then before the car, well, it was a van, before it was one of those small van things, before it actually hit me, this is the thing, this was the big thing. Before it actually physically hit me, I heard a voice and it stopped me because the voice sounded like my nan. And my nan died when I was 15. Now I was 30 something years old then. So she'd been gone for some time. And I heard the voice saying, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. And this was before I was actually hit by the van. And I questioned it. I was what? Because it's almost as if it jumped into my head, apart from all the clutter I'd been thinking about, like, oh, I've got to get the train, got to get the kids, got to post this letter. I heard her say that. And I didn't hear anything else. That's all I heard, her voice. And then I thought, God, well, that's stupid. And then all I heard her saying, because I was saying to myself, should I go get the newspaper to read on the train? This is the clutter I had in my head. Should I get the newspaper, which meant crossing the road at an angle, or should I post the letter first, which meant straight ahead? And logically trying to work out the best route, as you do. And then she said very clearly, go and get your newspaper. And I was questioning it even then, obviously, because I hadn't had this awakening. And I was like, that doesn't make sense if I get the newspaper. So she's trying to communicate with me. And I'm still like, it doesn't make sense, because if I do that, then I have to go back on myself and cross the road straight. That doesn't make sense. So I'm arguing with spirit, which I didn't know at the time. That was ridiculous. And so like, oh yeah, what the hell? And so this is all happening sort of really the time concept's very different then, dimension wise is very different. And I was like, okay, I'll go get the newspaper. Like a sulky child, that's how I felt. That saved my life, and I'll explain. If I was told later by the police that if I continued to walk straight across the road to post this letter in this red little letterbox opposite the post office, when the van had hit me, I would have gone through the windscreen, and my head would have been severed. There was no return if I'd gone straight across, as my logical brain was thinking to do. As I was arguing with my gran, telling me to go at an angle, lucky I did, because as I did this, what happened was when the van hit me, it hit me side on. So it fractured my ribs and there was other damage to my body. And I literally bounced off the side of the van and ended up flying 40 feet across the ground and ended up on the middle of the road, sort of whacked down on my right-hand side. So the physical damage was my pelvis on my right-hand side was broken. My knee had been twisted because it took the full brunt. My right foot took the full brunt of the actual impact as well. And I twisted around, sort of snapped everything. So there were 7 breaks in the x-rays, 7 breaks in my foot. My Achilles was damaged and I had to have ongoing surgery for that. My knee was broken. My ribs on both sides were fractured. My spleen was bleeding. So because the 40 miles per hour, when it hits you, the vehicle, you're still vibrating within your body. And my kidneys, my gallbladder, I was bleeding internally. So I didn't obviously know this, because at the time, what happened is, so I'd heard a voice, I did what I was told, so I walked at an angle, and then After that, I didn't feel a thing. I didn't feel the impact physically at all. From the moment she started talking to me, this is in March, it's March the 11th. And I remember I had my thick coat on. It was cold, physically cold. But when she started talking to me, I started feeling warm. I started feeling as if there was like a light around me. It was a very bright light, but I could still see with my eyes. I didn't have to squint my eyes. And all I know was that I felt as if she had like a duvet cover around me and was keeping me very warm. And I remember her talking to me, whispering in my ear. And that was one part of it where I was with her. I was being shown stuff. I was being shown scrolls. It felt I was there for a very long time. Now, that was one part of me, as a layer, as a dimension of me. And then the other part, it was very strange. I didn't know I'd been knocked down. All I know is that all of a sudden I was looking down on the road and I could see the traffic. I could hear, there was a Capital Radio playing in the background. Now, my physical self was dead in the road, right? And I didn't know this because I'd separated from myself. I had this out of body experience. I remember I could hear Capital Radio, and I remember turning around, and all of a sudden I was in this lorry in the cab, and I couldn't feel my physical self, nothing like that, but there was this driver and he was cursing, he was swearing, some silly cow has got knocked down. I'd interfered with his day because he was obviously busy, needed to get somewhere else. And he was radioing, telling whoever head office that he was running late. And then I was there 1 minute, and then I looked down again. I didn't know that was my body. And then I could see that lots of people were rushing out of the shops. I remember a lady saying she came out of the hairdressers. She was running out the hairdressers. She rolled up a towel and she was going to put it under my head. Now, how did I know this? Because I was dead, and I could see this, and I could see in her face, and I could feel the atmosphere. Like when you walked into a room, we were saying about if there's an argument, you can feel it. The atmosphere. Everyone had stopped. All the traffic had stopped. Some people had stopped when they were shocked, and some people were screaming, some people were running, and I still didn't know it was to do with me. I had no idea at all. There was no connection to that body at all, and then there was a family member who happened to be nearby, one of my in-laws, and he actually witnessed everything. He saw it, heard the van screeching, turned around, and he was actually going to the post office. It was a bizarre thing. You couldn't make it up. He turned around and I could see his face, and he looked really concerned. His blood had drained from his face. He looked very grey in the face, and he was looking, and I was like, I can understand what's going on. Why are you so sad? It was like I was asking him, but I wasn't getting no reply back. And the next minute I could then see my partner running down the road, because they've got a bakery in that road, Essex Road, and he was running down the road. I still didn't think it was anything to do with me. I had no idea. His mum was running down the road as well, and I could see it in his face. He looked shocked, and so somebody obviously must have told him what had happened. And then, so again, I didn't know it was me. I was just looking down at this body, no attachment to it at all. Then I saw a paramedic arrive on his motorbike, and I heard the sirens arriving. Oh, talking about it brings me back to it right now. And so I could sort of hear the sirens. The paramedic came over to my body. I remember him getting off his motorbike, and his motorbike was parked further down the road, and he walked over to me, sort of thing. And there was also a gentleman, which I really wish that I could meet him. A gentleman was talking in my ear, and I could hear the sound. They were saying the last thing to go before you die is the hearing. And he was talking to me, saying, hold on in there, everything's going to be okay. And he kept on saying that to me. And I wish I knew. I'd love to say thank you to him. He was saying, holding on there, everything's going to be okay. But I wasn't physically feeling my body at that time. No pain, nothing at all. Paramedic came over and stuff, and I remember that's when it sort of fades away, where I remember I was then being shown some stuff. I remember that. Then my partner actually bent down and touched my head, and then automatically I felt his feelings coming through. So as a medium now, it's very similar. When I feel the loved ones on the other side, I can feel their feelings. Sorry. And so I could feel his feelings, and he was saying that he didn't know how he was going to cope, he didn't know how he was going to manage with the children, because we had my two children of 5 and 7 years old in primary school waiting for mum to pick them up, and so it's every mum's worst enemy. And you know, I hate being late for anything. And so so he put his hand on my head, and he was thinking about, you know, how he was going to manage with Rebecca and Nathan and stuff. And I couldn't understand what was going on then. I knew then that could have been me, but I remember thinking, oh my God, what's going on? Then I sort of remember thinking, why am I not in my body? Why am I here? You know, and I remember my nan putting her arms around me. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And then I asked the questions. I then started saying, "What about Rebecca and Nathan?" You know, and before I actually, this sticks in my head. Before I actually had a chance to finish the sentence, "What about Rebecca and Nathan?" She said, "Everything's going to be okay. It's all going to be okay." So I didn't even have a chance to finish my sentence. They knew the time span is so different there. They come straight in before they know what you're going to say, you know, telepathically and everything. It was amazing. And that's what happened there. And then the ambulance arrived, and I remember them cutting my clothes off. And you know what? I absolutely think ambulance staff are absolutely amazing, because I was actually dead, but they were still talking to me. They were communicating with me, and I could hear them still. So it's a real weird feeling. Even though I was out of my body, I could still hear them saying, "Everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay." And one of them started cutting off my coat, and it must have looked pretty expensive, which, you know, I can't afford expensive. And he started cutting my coat off, and he said, "I'm sorry, love, I'm going to have to cut your coat off." And I wasn't there. It makes no difference to me. And, you know, I remember him saying that. And I remember them trying to move me and stuff. And I remember then I remember where I was. I started sort of flipping out a little bit over there, because I remember they had like the paddles on my chest, and I didn't know what was going on. It was really trying hard to understand. I was there, but I could see this, I could feel it. I was in between two worlds, really. And, you know, bridging the realm, it's brilliant what you're saying, because it's so true. And I didn't know where I was meant to go, what was happening. And when they paddled my chest, literally, this is how it felt. It felt, you know, like the water slides you get at a water theme park. Okay, it was literally, you know, I was somewhere where it was warm and white light, and I was with my gran, and even though I was a bit confused, you know, what was going on, I didn't feel the physical pain in my body. But when the paddle hit my chest, my heart started beating again, and I came straight down. It felt as if I was going down this tunnel, and I was whizzing around. I wasn't like going wee. It was great fun. Didn't feel like that at all. I just like straight in. And then the pain hit me, and I was like, oh my God, I was trembling. It was the shock in the body. And the ambulance team was saying, "We've got you, love, we've got you, hold on in there." And then I felt the physical pain. When I was in the ambulance, again, a couple of times, I kept on coming out of my body, and I could see the top of the ambulance. I saw the number written on the top of the ambulance and saw the sirens. They got me into UCHL in Euston. And I remember it was so strange. I must have popped out of my body, because I was looking down at it, and they put me into crash team or something. They said crash team. I remember hearing crash team. And I remember hearing lots of bells ringing and sounds. And then they began to cut all my clothes off me. I had team on my legs and my pelvis, team on my stomach, a team on my head and my neck. And I remember I didn't feel any pain. I'd stepped out my body again. And part of me was, not then, but when I look back, I was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. They cut my clothes off. They saw all my bits. And I was like, you know what your mum my mum used to say to me, always make sure you leave the house with clean pants on, because you never know what's going to happen. And I tell you, later she came to visit me, and she actually did say that to me when I was okay, and they got me on the drips and the monitors and stuff. She actually whispered in my ear, "I hope you did wear clean pants." And I was so annoyed. I was like, "Mum." And it was just so funny, you know, what your mum said, you know. But at that time, I'd also stepped out, and I was looking down at the team, and I was in for a couple of weeks, and I didn't want the children to visit me the way I was. There was nothing that happened physically to my face, but I was scared what they might think. And it was the worst thing I did looking back. They should have come to visit me, to be honest. Children create images in their minds of what they think could be happening. So it would have been better for them to have come to see me. And then that was the process of then learning how to re-walk. When I returned home, I was sorry, I couldn't read the book to my son in his bed. He was on a bunk bed, and where my leg was so busted and my hips, I stayed on the sofa downstairs for months, maybe even a year. And when I came back, I felt like the broken self. I wasn't mummy anymore. I'd changed. I was diagnosed post-traumatic stress because I kept on constantly feeling the van hitting me. That's how my body was processing it. Yeah. And the guilt that I had about, I'm supposed to be the mum there to protect my children and be the strong one, and yet I wasn't able to do that. But I became disabled. They pushed me around in a wheelchair, and they were my voice. People are very peculiar. If the society, if they see you in a wheelchair, they don't think that you can actually hear. And I remember I was in the wheelchair. What was wrong with me was I was broken, my physical bones. But I wasn't broken, and I remember they would shout as they'd spoken to me, like, "Are you okay?" And Rebecca, my daughter, said, "She can hear you. Her ears are working perfectly. It's her legs," So yeah, been disabled for about 4 years, learning to rewalk, and I'm absolutely fine now. I can tell you like a weather gauge if it's going to be cold and damp because my foot plays up. But apart from that, and that was my big awakening. It was a life-changing experience. So there was no way I could have turned back after that. There you go, in a nutshell.
Yeah. Oh my God, wow, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you sharing this with us. I know so many people will benefit from hearing just you sharing this story, and also just having that knowing that you do, your body you don't just disappear. There is somewhere that you go, and you do see your loved ones on the other side who were helping you throughout this whole thing. So it's so nice and comforting to hear that, because I know, especially yesterday, we were talking about the whole death and anxiety, and people having this huge fear of death, and it's because they just think they will disappear and they're not going to exist anymore. But that's so comforting to know that you actually, as soon as you step out on the other side, people are there for you. You're never alone. So
you're never alone. And I've said this to many. I'm realizing, and I what I say to people is that your body, the physical body, is a shell. It's a vessel, like a car. And it's like when we've got to take care of our cars. We get the MOTs, we service them, we put the right fuel in, we take care of them, we clean them, whatever, and we get them checked out every so often. And then, once that car has, no longer can do its job anymore, like its engine or our heart sort of fails or whatever it is, or those main parts of a car, we then pop out, soul pops out and finds another vehicle. So I'm a real believer in that soul is an essence. It's all around you, and that essence decides whether it comes back or not. I mean, that whole episode led me to train as a past life practitioner. It started my whole avenue of going off in different directions of that experience, because I then was shown that we're not just finished. It doesn't just end here, that we go on. There's the essence of that, and that's what I bring through as a medium, that their loved one, their personality, I try to enable their personality as much as I can to come through and work with me, and so that when the person sits in front of me, they're feeling as if they're sitting in the same room as them. So I'm not scared of dying, and I've done it a couple of times now, and I'm not scared of dying. I just keep getting sent back.
Yeah, you've had good training at dying, so I think yeah. Oh God, wow. But yeah, really, there's something really interesting you mentioned about the emergency team who were in the ambulance, who kept talking to you even though you were well, physically dead, you appeared to be dead, but they continued to talk. And it's those little things that I've noticed that people can do. It just can make such a huge difference. And them speaking to you, and then on the other side your nan was speaking to you, and telling you everything was going to be okay. So I think it's almost like it kind of keeps you, I guess, anchored in a way, or like aligned.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I did a soul midwifery course not so long ago, and that was one of the things they said was the last thing to go was the hearing. And I really believe that's the connection back to, obviously, look, if that was my time to go, I would have gone.
Yeah.
I see this from my guides, that we all have a barcode telling us when we're going to expire. And no, by the way, I do not tell people when they're going to expire, because that's not my duty. That's not my job. And they wouldn't have given me the information anyway. But obviously on that day, I was not meant to die, and in the sense of not to come back. I was meant to come back, and then move forward with the drama that happened in my life. You know, I know what it's like to be disabled at that particular time. I know what it's like to relearn to walk. I've had pain, and I've other things that have happened to me as well, you know, appendix burst. And, you know, I did it the best way. You know, I was on stage at the Globe Theatre doing a history tour, and I collapsed in front of 200 people. Fantastic. Appendix burst. They didn't get me then either. No fantastic experiences, but, you know, what I'm saying is when your time is up, you can't negotiate it. It's not a movie. You know, if it's your time, you're going to go, you'll go. But it really was a sign for me that, you know, come on, Anne, we've been trying to communicate with you, and let's know, you know, you have to sit there and listen. And a bit like the lockdowns and the pandemic, it's actually put everyone on pause, making them stop to reevaluate where they are. So I think sometimes we need to look at it not being such a negative thing. And for those who've lost their jobs and homes, and I know what that's like. I have a member of family who's going through that. But on the other side of that, when we look back, there might be a bigger reason for why, like re-navigating them in their life. I think we have to always hold on to the hope that it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. I know, yes, I completely agree. I think this is definitely the universe's way of telling us, right, you need to realign back into your purpose of what you came here to do, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Even though it looks ugly and it's painful, and I know, but yeah, I think we do need to go for it. It's just because it's just our brains otherwise just don't allow us. Our egos are so attached to like these silly things.
I think if you look at it, if you think of the story of mankind and humans, how we are, and then the science bit again, up until the age of 7, we are programmed by our caregivers. So we are, our world, we formulate our world from how they see the world. So if you've got people around you saying, no, it's not real, it doesn't exist, or they might say comments like, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you're going to believe it. Your brain physically does not come online for you to be able to think for yourself up until the age of 7. So, you know, if you've been fed all this information, whatever information is, no, you can't do this because auntie blah, blah can't do that, or whatever, you know, the adults around you are telling you their life story. And so that you believe it, that you're not able to do certain things or not to believe in certain things. And it's your duty as a human being to go and do that personal development, to look at what's happening for you. And, you know, you can't whinge. You can whinge, but you whinge alone and it doesn't move you forward. And that's why I do with my clients, who I help them to look at what's the bigger picture, what's going on, and what's it teaching you right now. Everything's teaching us everything all the time.
Oh yes, totally. Yes, every little thing, every sign, everything is a sign. Yes, completely. So since you now obviously you knew that you could hear your grandma, you were pretty sure that was your grandma that you were hearing. After that, were you more open or able to hear now voices from spirit again? Were you kind of more, or still kind of trying to block it out?
So of course I'm human. Of course I thought, no, you know, did I really go through that experience? And I really questioned it. I remember at the time I was going to church quite a lot. And I remembered I was trying to work out what was going on still. I had post-traumatic stress and I was in a wheelchair. And I remember going to church that Sunday. And I remember that particular conversation I had with the vicar at the church, sort of saying, this is what happened to me. I can now hear in voices and I'm starting to see things. And I think I was scared the living daylights out of him because he's like, oh, no, we don't believe in that here, blah, blah. And I thought, well, if we don't believe in that here, where do I take this? So that was a journey in itself. I pulled away from the church because I found it difficult. First of all, I started going to Bible classes thinking, is the Bible right? And I went down all the avenues. I really did. Different religions, different cultures. I've been brought up in a very funny way, different cultures, different stepdads from, you know, different, you know, the Judaism, the Rastafarian, the Italian Catholic, you know, all different backgrounds. I've been, oh my God, my mother-in-law's a Quaker, you know, my partner's Jewish, my children went to a church at England school. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you've got a good bunch of everything, basically.
I mean, now we were saying, you know, when we look back at life, we see why things have happened, and I can see now why I've lived certain lives, and you know, and why certain things have happened, and I totally get it. But yeah, the voices became more. I could hear the voices more, started seeing more, and then I knew I needed to do something about it. And someone then mentioned about you should do Reiki, they said to me. I was like, what the hell's Reiki? I don't know. And I was like, oh. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll have a little look at it. And I remember I went to Holborn City Lit down in Holborn, and I trained with the Reiki. And then again, I started doing the Reiki and learning about chakras. And I was like, what the hell is a chakra? I had no idea. I didn't know what was going on. Everyone's going on about this energy business. What are they talking about? I had no idea. And so I decided then, that was the moment that, you know, maybe I should look at energy, what's going on and stuff. And so, yeah, I did the Reiki course, and doing the Reiki course then opened up another avenue where I started hearing voices and hearing information about the body. And I was like, what the hell's going on? I started hearing, I had a client with kidney problem, talking about energy. My laptop is like saying to me, energy wise. So there you go. I just put it in. And that's what happens, it drains the energy source. Phones turn upside down, computer screens, you name it. And then started doing the Reiki, and then organs started talking to me, and I'm like, oh God, what does this mean? Spoke to my Reiki teacher, and she said, oh, you're a medical intuitive. Went off to studying that. And then I started feeling organs in my mouth, and my tongue would work around the organs, and I could see what was going on. Yeah, I know, it's bizarre.
Wow. Yeah, I've never heard that one before, but interesting. Okay, so okay, let's just explain this.
Sorry.
You said you feel organs in your mouth?
Yes.
Okay.
So the structure, the actual physical structure. So I remember I was working on one client, and she, I asked them not to tell me anything, and she literally had something going on with her kidneys, and I actually 1 minute then could feel the kidneys sitting on my tongue, not obviously the full size. I don't know what the sizes are, but I'm sort of I'm medical intuitive, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not medically trained, let me tell you. And I could just start feeling the shape and form, and it felt as if there was something not quite right. And I came up and I trained as a counsellor, so very careful in my wording and what to say to this person, and started talking to them. I said, have you seen a doctor? Blah, blah, blah. We started talking, and she said, yes, they pinpointed the area. And I said, can I just tell you where I think it is? And I told her, and she said, yeah, you're spot on. So I was like, oh my God, now why are you giving me body parts? What the hell? I mean, we could go down a whole new avenue. It was like strange. And I was like, okay, fine. Now, yeah, I dabbled in that for a short time. That sometimes comes into play when I'm as a psychic medium and stuff. And today, with my mediumship skills, sometimes I taste food in my mouth that the person on the other side would have loved to eat. I love that when that comes through. And then sometimes I smell, if a tobacco smoker, I can smell the smell of that, or lavender, or there's certain smells. So there's a whole, they've been working with me for a long time, I'm 52, come on. So they've used different areas of my life to train me up. So
you're 40 or something. Yeah. I think with working with spirit definitely gives you a bit of a kind of boost, isn't it? All that energy.
Yeah, so crazy. Yeah, so it all started coming online, different parts of me, and seeing also spirit as well, but mainly hearing, and mainly the clairvoyant is the big thing, and feeling. There's a bit of everything. So because it really depends on the person I'm sitting with. Depending on how I'm communicating with them, it's no good saying something to them that they might not understand. I have to be able to work with that individual who sits in front of me. So and obviously the person on the other side as well, you have to accommodate them as well.
Yeah, and kind of use that lingo that the person would
understand.
And which is what what I really love about you is how because you have you've studied in both worlds, isn't it? You've done the counseling and the psychology, but you also done the intuition and the psychic mediumship. So you can really just attune according to the person, whether they're a little bit more logical or a little less logical. And you can
because I have clients that might be a business person from a different, because I'm global. So, I had someone the other day from Singapore, and they have a chain of hotels, and they're very logically thinking, and they come to me with a business question, and I'm like, what do I know about business? So I go out to one side and then, hello guys, can you tell me what's going on? And then they'll come in and I have to watch my terminology. It's no good sitting there saying touchy feeling words and using the senses when they're going to be looking at me, you know, I've come to you about a business thing. And so they'll come to me with figures and other things, and I'm terrible with maths. So, you know, I've tuned out and they've come in and they're helping me. So yeah, you have to adapt to the individual. And also, you know, because I'm an animal communicator, so, you know, animals don't work like that. You know, I mean, I've done remote viewing where I've tried to find a cat somewhere, and with cats, they're very different from dogs, where the cat, you know, if I'm working telepathically with a cat, like, where are you? I mean, they take forever. You know, one cat in particular took me around the bush. It was I don't literally mean a bush, but it took me hours to actually get to where they were. And I said, look, if you don't meow shortly, you know, they're not going to see you or hear you. You need to. And he was showing me that it was near a skip, and I could smell the cardboard box. I could taste the tuna in the back of my mouth. I mean, I love tuna, but I didn't need to do that. I didn't need to feel that. Thank you very much. But I could see there was a tin of tuna that had been opened, and this cat was sitting there in this box. And, you know, the cat had been missing for 3 days. So the cat had gone down the 3 days of where it'd been. It told me it'd seen the buses. It told me it'd gone to the pond. And I'm like, is that where you are now? No. Well, come on, tell me where you are now. So you've got to be adaptable. So, and they work very much with picture form. So luckily the vision, I get the block sort of pictures and stuff, but they get quite freaked out. A lot of the cats are quite freaked out when I pop in and sort of, hi, and telepathically they're still alive. They're like, and you're like, it's okay, calm.
Oh wow, that's interesting that they work animals and humans who have passed over, all humans who have passed over work differently.
Yes.
But this is the cat that wasn't dead, right? That was a cat that was just lost.
Yeah, and I did the remote viewing and worked telepathically with a cat. Oh God, I've had hundreds, and dogs, and it's crazy.
Amazing. Wow.
A lot of cats have gone missing during the lockdown. A lot of cats have decided they've had enough of their owners. Sorry, that's really bad.
Really? I'm not surprised.
I can't say I found all of them. I mean, that's totally being honest with you. There's some cats that haven't wanted to return back to their owners. They wanted to live somewhere else.
Cats have a mind of their own. Yeah, they're really independent. So
yeah, you gotta love them. You gotta love them for it. But yeah, I love them.
Yeah, cats are my favorite. Yeah, that's one thing I love about cats is I know people love dogs, and I love dogs as well. But I think when a cat comes to you and actually sits next to you, that means the world, because it's like, you know, they normally don't do that. They're so independent, but when they do, it's just,
And then when they've had enough of you, you know it. Yeah, I know. I've had cats, dogs, you name it, the whole snakes. I've kept lizards and everything. So yeah, can you imagine?
God, yeah. Oh God, that's so interesting how this whole thing works. But yeah, well, okay, so so back to the psychic mediumship. And, okay, so now when people come to you, what and then, you know, their relatives come through, what would you say is like the main thing that always stands out, that a message that they always want to pass on to their loved ones who are still here?
Good question. It's really funny. I was talking to somebody last night. I had a client, and I've done quite a lot of sittings now, well over 2,000, well over that. And the spirit on the other side, the loved one, they'll come through, like, for me, it's the heart center, and it's because they love that person who's there. They really want to contact them, and you can't fake it. They love you, they're going to come through. I had a lady last night who sat with me, and she wanted me to contact someone for her. And we had the mum, the father, we had her auntie come through. And then she then said, oh, while we're here, by the way, can you just see if you can bring blah blah through? And I went, I can't bring anyone. I can ask my guides, like runners on a film set, go and see if we got this person there. And then if they are, they'll come through. But you can't demand anyone to come through. And I said, no, I'm not feeling them. Hang on a minute. How do you know them? And she said, oh, they're a friend of a friend of a friend. I went, they're not going to come through. There's got to be some reason for why they're coming through. There's got to be a message or a love or something. For me, that's how I find it anyway. And so she said, oh, I didn't realize. I said, there's only been twice, 2 people that's happened. And I've also had spirit on the other side turn around and said, they've come through for me. I've had the person sitting in front of me who's come to contact me. Now the spirit on the other side has come through and said, I don't want to communicate with that person It was their sister, but because the relationship was so bad, Spirit did honor me, which was really lovely and kind of them to say to me, I'm not coming through because of you as a medium. I'm not coming through because I don't want to talk to them. I don't have that relationship. And I was shocked by that. And I was like, thank you, because I'm always learning. There's always new things coming up. And when we have loved ones coming through, you know, friend, family member, whatever, and animals, I give that space to animals on the other side as well, because I respect them as much as humans. I don't put them on any, you know, uneven pegging. They're the same for me in my world. It's always about to say, I'm okay, I'm here, I'm okay. And they might say they've met Auntie George, or, you know, or Uncle George, or whoever, or Auntie Gladys, or whoever it is. It makes no difference. But they're just saying they're okay. Now, I also believe, because of me having my own miscarriages, I had 5 miscarriages in between my children, that I have a lot of women that come to me who've had miscarriages. And that was, you know, bizarre in the first place of me being aware of that. I was like, you know, the whole thing about the soul, and obviously hasn't come through, hasn't had a full term, you know, they haven't had labor, you know, what actually happens and stuff. And it was only literally working with Spirit that made me understand what happens. It's that essence again, it's that soul, you know. And the women that come to see me, or, you know, there's been some fathers as well, but it's mainly, I'd say, majority of women that come through, that's when the angels work with me and they bring me forward. There's a baby in arms, and then either it's a stillborn or it is a miscarriage. Terminations, that's a different thing. They come from a different way. But the essence of, I'm okay, I'm being looked after, I met such and such, you know. And that's the same with animals. When the animals come through, I get part of the personality of the animal, and the animal says, I'm here. But the way they say it, I mean, I actually I sat with one of my clients, and he was a barrister, quite top barrister, very logical thinking, brought through his mum, his dad, and he heard them, and yeah, that's very nice, thank you very much. And I was like, where's the cherry on the top here? And I shouldn't be thinking that, but I did. And then suddenly I was going, oh my God, I'm a dog now. And I was panting, and I was like, what the hell? I could feel the dog. It was a spaniel or some sort. And I said, where's the ball? Where's the ball? Where's the ball? And it again, when he had this communication, this dog came through. It was like, oh my God. And he sat there and he was weeping. He said the name of the dog and he was weeping. He said, she's okay. No, wait, she's fine. Yeah, she's absolutely fine. She's on the other side. It's that reassurance. They want the living person on this planet to know they're okay. Wherever they are, they're absolutely okay. It's just to reassure you that you don't need to worry. And majority of the time, they just want to help. And with the reason I call myself an intuitive holistic therapist is because I can't put myself under one title, because literally, you know, I work as a therapist, and then I might have an aunt or an uncle saying, they're not telling you the whole story here. And they'll tell me information like, okay. And then, you know, and then I help them. And, you know, Spirit's quite a tough customer. You know, they'll say to me, say it this way around. I'm like, gosh, because I try to say, right, I'm a therapist. And then I made sure I switched off and sort of said, right, I'll just deal with my therapy clients. And then suddenly I've got someone tapping me on the shoulder saying, no, handle it from this direction. Like, oh my gosh. So now I bring it all together, and basically it's about the individual that needs that assistance. But yeah, on the other side, they just want you to know that they're to help you.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That's such an important message, and I think everyone should know that, whether you believe in afterlife or you don't. It's, again, everyone should know that.
Yeah, what have you got to lose? I mean, what the hell? By just, you know, maybe having a little look, investigating it for yourself. What have you got to lose?
Yeah, that's the thing. And now there is actually so much scientific evidence that proves that with near-death experiences, with out-of-body experiences. I mean, it's crazy now. There's just so much. So I think it's just this need to stay attached to the old terms and the old way of believing. But yeah, I think that's...
There is, sorry to interrupt you, because I worked in a hospital for a while, and I was there for 4 years, and working with the consultants there, you know, it didn't matter who you was in the staff room. they come in their scrubs in their blue theatre gear, and then there was some in the admin team, wear your suits and stuff. Then we had the porters coming in there, and then you had the cleaners. It didn't matter what job or role that you did, we all sat together in the staff room and had to eat. Basically, you all have to eat, you all have to go to the toilet, you all have to breathe, okay? So it's irrelevant of your job title, and I was sitting at the table, and I remember when this started coming up in conversation, and I think it was one of the days that someone had actually passed over on the operating theatre, and the team came in, they were quite silent and stuff, and one of them had started talking about it, and then we got into the conversation, and I wasn't going to sound a psychic medium or a Reiki healer at the time or anything at all, but I was just talking and communicating, and I picked up a few things, and somebody said, well, how would you know that? You weren't in the operating theatre. And I was like, oh gosh, busted. And then I ended up having the consultants talking to me, and I did some Reiki healing on them, and they had said the same thing. There is, I know, for science doctors, and these are surgeons, and they started coming to me to have the healing, and a lot of them still come to see me as a psychic medium now. But as they said, you can't see the soul, and as they open up the heart, they can't see the word love on it. It's not shaped as we see it, in the movies, but they know there's something else. They know that they have parents, they have children, they know how they feel around their mum and their dad. You can't put a name on it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You look at our mobile phones we use every day. You can't see the connection to the satellite dish, but we accept that it's receiving a signal. And as a psychic medium, it's like me. I know that I'm tuned in like a radio, and I just turn the dial on the top, and it's a radio station. I pick up on whoever. It's the same thing. Why do we doubt this? Well, we don't doubt the microwaves. They cook our dinners for us. So I think people need to think.
That is such a good point. Thank you for saying that. Yes, it's just the obvious things that we just don't think about. Yeah.
We accept that because it's in our everyday life in front of our face. Mm-hmm. And we don't question it.
Totally. Yeah. So we just need more people talking about their near-death experiences, and then it'll be normal. Which is pretty much what's happening now. Like, so many people coming out. But yeah, no, that's amazing. I think definitely more of this should be out in the general media, information out there. But yeah, let me just while it's on my mind, I wanted to go back. Well, first of all, interesting. I mean, is there anything you haven't done, Anne? Because you've worked as a zookeeper, you've worked in hospitals, you've worked as a counselor, you've done so many things.
I have.
That's a lot of things covered. Yeah.
We counted it up. I did a CV. The thing is, I can't fit in with just one job. This is the thing. And me and my daughter were sitting there. I think I've done 22 different jobs. Terrible. And I've always been really good at them. And I've always got to the top, like into management. But I need stimulation. I need more than what that job's giving me. And so now doing this, I'm a psychic medium, a therapist. I run the global retreats around the world, the spiritual empowerment workshops. I do weekend retreats. I do one-day workshops in London. Been a little bit screwed this year, though. What with lockdown, it's been a bit difficult doing the global retreat, but it's okay. So I do. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, next year will be.
So that's it. So I do that. I make sure that I spend that time, that I'm actually now taking the time to. Gosh, you would not believe this. My phone's going off, and I put it on silent and no notifications. I mean, when spirit wants to get through.
I was just thinking that spirit's calling.
and seriously, I mean, if I could show the screen, it's on no notifications and flight mode.
Yeah, well, there you go. When they want to get through, they get through. So
exactly. So yeah, there's no job I'm sure there's plenty of jobs I haven't done, but yeah. So as but that helps me then when I have a client that different walks of life. I've lived some of those lives. To some degree.
No, yes, totally, because then so many more people can relate to you into how you communicate to them. So I think that's a really amazing way to do it. But yeah, quickly I wanted to go to your second near-death experience. You don't have to go into detail into it, but at this point, were you already working with the psychic mediumship, or by then were you? Because I think
I wasn't. Getting knocked down by a van is not enough for me, you see. So I decided, but I still didn't know that this was what I meant to do. I was thinking, what am I meant to do with my life? What job am I supposed to do? I was in all the other jobs and terribly unhappy. Didn't feel fulfilled, and literally, and I've well, I was diagnosed with having asthma, and I remember it very clearly. The day this happened, my lung collapsed. And of course, I wasn't sure if I believed in angels. Of course, be careful, because I didn't know. And I remember sitting there and I couldn't breathe, and there was lots of issues with my medication. Nothing was working. And literally that day it happened, I reached out and I said, oh my God, I need help. Is there anyone there to help me? Thinking my nan might pop through. And then, I mean, but geez, it was scary. It was literally like a heavy statue that thump down by the side of me. And I was so scared to turn around to look. And I remember just sort of thinking, I'm absolutely going crazy. This is the moment I'm going crazy, because I can see an angel that's kneeling down before me, and it looks like a stone statue. And it's not fluffy in how we imagine it. It was pretty scary. I mean, literally when the angel, I don't want to say it, but when the angel stood up, I mean, literally we're talking, I don't know, 20, 30 felt as it was, presence was very big. That's how it felt. But, who knows? But that experience was scary. And then from that day on, I never looked back, and I was like, okay, guys, I believe you exist, because after that scary moment, and through my lung collapsing and then being by my side, I was then diagnosed with a lifelong condition that I have, not just asthma. And then, consultants labeling what it is, and that you're not going to be able to do anything. You have to stay at home on the oxygen cylinder. And I'm like, no, life's too short. Sorry, I'm going to get on. So, I decided that is not going to limit me, that I will still continue to do what I need to do. And, I take medication and I'm fine.
That's the spirit. Yeah.
Don't get me.
Yeah. I often find with just that diagnosis of, like, the doctor's diagnosis of telling you, you're always going to have to, that in itself is so damaging. And when people give their power away to that, it's just, I mean, that could kill you. That could, just believing in that can kill you.
Because your mind, as we said about Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and those are the ones I trained with as well. Your mind, what you tell yourself, your mind, if you think of every thought that you have, you'll create a chemical within your body. And that chemical, if we're excited, we produce the adrenaline and everything else, because that's to physically get your body to move. Now, if you're, like, as I said, I had postnatal depression and I had post-traumatic stress and I had depression. Again, my body was producing all these chemicals. So every thought, once you're told, I was waking up, I suffered with agoraphobia for 2 years. I didn't leave my house, thinking my lung was going to collapse again. So I spent another 2 years living in my house, where I was too scared to walk to the end of the road. And luckily, I was then sent to a lung physio. She taught me how to breathe again properly. And then I realized that I was waking up every day thinking to myself, oh, I have this condition. I didn't see me as me anymore. I wasn't Anne. I just saw me as this condition. And so I was like, oh my God. And then, having the lung physio, having the right medication, reading, going on YouTube, listening to stuff like this, finding out about Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Dispenza and all the others out there about the rewiring the brain, it changed my life. And that's why now when I have clients, I've learned all that, and that's what I do with my clients, to help them to reprogram in old negative self-limiting beliefs. And you're right, if you're told something, go and investigate yourself. Not everybody's an expert. I'm not an expert. Everyone, you need to go look for yourself, find out the information.
Yes, totally. And yeah, you're such a good example of how, your belief in yourself and that you can get over it, you can get past it, actually works. Yeah,
it does.
Right. Wow, I know we've had quite a session here, but kind of just to finish off, there's just a few things in terms of I want to touch back on this whole logic versus feeling. And do you kind of, from before everything you went through and afterwards and now doing the work, do you see these two working together? And how do you use your mind and your logic with your feelings now as opposed to before?
Right, okay. So it's a balance. I'm not an expert. I've gone through all that, but it's still a balance of logically thinking things through. Look, if I know I want to run a retreat next year, that's not going to magically happen. I know that I get a nudge from spirit saying, like this Monday coming, I'm doing something this Monday. And I got a nudge from spirit to say, you need to do this. So I'm like, then Anne, as a human being, has to use a logical mind in thinking, how am I going to do this? I'll put this together. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, me personally, I work hand in hand with spirit and my logical mind. That's my balance, and if I need any help or assistance, I'm like, guys, what do you think? And I check in with them as well. But I try to stay out the logical mind as much as I can, because you miss the magic then, because then you start doubting and you're like, oh, is that meant to happen? You start, am I capable of really doing that? They think that you are, they'll tell you that you are, they'll help you. Yeah.
Well, that's a brilliant way of doing it. Yeah, I totally think there should be a good balance, because obviously we have the brain for a reason, and we're still physical. So
yeah, we've got to use the brain every so often.
Yes, totally. And now, where do you kind of see your work going? Do you see yourself doing more retreats? Kind of allowing more people to know about the afterlife, and the fact that our loved ones are still there, and they help us constantly from the other side.
So it's funny, my work is changing. It has been changing since lockdown. I've been doing trance work now as well. So that's a whole different dimension, and tuning into another radio station and picking up information from there. I'm more happy to sort of share my work now and to get it more out there for people to be more aware of it. Sometimes there was the part of me was a bit worried about the stigma and people saying, oh, she's crazy, whatever. That's out the window now. I'm 52. I'm like, I don't care. And, you have to think what you have to think. You personally, I'm not saying to anyone, you have to believe in this. It's down to them as an individual. I think what I've really been told by Spirit is that it's really to get that work out there, and for those who want to know information, they'll find the right teacher, they'll find the right person that will come to them. And so really it's about, by doing stuff like this, is to really just put it out there now so people are aware. And if they need any advice or help, or I wouldn't say advice, but if they want anything or assistance, then they can find the right people. I think that's really, you need to have those, those colleges, those institutes, those places, those people to go to. And that's what I want to do. And I want to write a book as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Everything, darling, everything I want.
Yeah, you cover it all.
Life is limitless. While we're here, you have to embrace it and just go for anything you want. And if it's meant to be, it's going to be. They'll help you. They'll guide you to the right people. And that is a belief that I really firmly believe in. And that's up to the individual as well.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Amazing. And last question, how, on a daily basis, what do you do to kind of make sure that you're grounded and that you're kept aligned?
Good question. Look, listen, I'm not a Tibetan monk, so I can't lie. I would love to say every single day I meditate. I really would love to meditate. And I do meditate in a sense, but my meditations, they might be 5-10 minutes long, sometimes 20 minutes. And I've done like an hour or so as well. So what I do is when I tend to get up, I try to focus my mind and just try to sort of be in my body first before I start thinking about those things that you have to do in your daily life. I'm not going to lie and say I'm wholly spiritual, because I'm not. I'm a human being like everyone else. But during the day, I catch myself and I make sure that I must ground myself. And for me, nature's important. I go out and I go for a walk. I really ground myself. And so if I feel, and a little tip, that if anyone's really feeling like overwhelmed, go walk in nature, go see, go feel, be that sunflower, be the solar panel. When the sun's out, if you want to, go and sit in the sun, make the most of nature, because that's what nature was here for, is to help balance us out. That's what I would say. And that's what I do.
Totally. That's such a good advice. And I hear that over and over again from people who are in this work. I think nature is just like the best cure for that. But yeah. And thank you so much for your time and sharing this space with me. It's been so incredible speaking to you. And again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know for a fact so many people will find this so helpful. And yeah, really, really.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed sharing this time with you. And hopefully anything will help people.
Definitely. And guys, just to let you know, if you do want to get in touch with Anne or find out more about her services or any of her group sessions that she does with her students, you can visit her site, which is www.annebayford.com, and again, that will be in the description below. And you can find her on Instagram, which is ANNE.Bayford, yep. And also her Facebook page, which is Like-Minded Souls, where I think you do your trance sessions on there, don't you?
I put some of my trance stuff on there, and I've just started to run a YouTube channel as well, so it'll be on there shortly.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so I'll add that to the description again.
Thank you.
And yes, guys, on the comments, people are saying thank you so much. I think people don't have questions yet. I think they're still kind of processing everything that was being said because we covered a lot. But we will be doing another session in the new year, so make sure you guys check back about that. We'll be, I think this time maybe we'll do a few readings or something with that. Yeah, so that would be pretty cool. But yeah, thank you so much again, Anne. And guys, make sure you share this video with anyone who you think might contribute from this helpful information. Just share it, like it, subscribe, and also make sure you check out Anne's channel as well, where she'll be posting amazing videos, I'm sure. So we'll be following up on that. Okay.